Hello and welcome to another redgamingtech.com video. This is going to be another discussion video slash news type thing. This video was inspired by the recent news that DayZ could possibly be coming to consoles, and I'm also going to be discussing PC games and modding in general. As pretty much anyone and their mother will know by now, DayZ is of course the extraordinarily successful mod for Arma 2, which has now been confirmed to be made into its own standalone game. Obviously that itself is a little bit of old news, but there's more news posted today which I think is worth discussing. Now basically what this news is that it could make its way to consoles if the PC release is successful enough. Basically, Project Lead Dean Hall, who is obviously responsible for creating the original mod as well, said, "You're not going to put it on the consoles if you're only going to sell 100,000 units or something like that. DayZ will be driven by its PC development and it will innovate on that. And once we're at a point, we'll take it and do a Mac 360 and PS3 version, So yeah, I think this would be completely and utterly awesome if this were to happen. I mean, it's pretty awesome that DayZ has become so insanely popular that it's going to become its own game. I mean, the guy who made the mod must be completely chuffed. I mean, he probably didn't expect that outcome when he originally created the mod. I mean, I highly doubt he was expecting this response. I mean, he's sure probably thought, yeah, it'd be popular, a few people would download it, but popular enough to become its own standalone game. He probably didn't even dream of that, to be honest. So, you know, I'm really happy for the guy that this has happened, and I would absolutely love to see it come to consoles, because it just means it'll reach more of an audience that way. I mean, I personally haven't played the DayZ mod just because I don't own Arma 2, and it's not really my type of game. I don't want to buy Arma 2 just so I can play DayZ, so I'm pretty pleased to hear that it's becoming its own game, so obviously that means I'll actually get to play it. And the same can be said for people who aren't really PC gamers, as many people are not. Not everyone has the money, knowledge, know-how and all that good stuff to build their own PC, or even to just make the right decision in buying one, or even to be able to afford one, because for a decent gaming PC it's not exactly cheap these days. So it'd be great to see the game reach an even bigger audience, to be honest. And I think it would do really, really well on consoles if it was launched. I mean, to be honest, I don't think there's any chance, touch wood, of this game not doing well when it's released as a standalone, because obviously it's going to be on its own engine, all this good stuff, and the limitations that it had before because it was restricted to the code that had already been written for Arma 2. You know, all these problems that the mod had, a lot of them can be resolved by the fact that it's going to have its own engine, own development, all that good stuff, and it's not restrained by an already existing engine, but will have an engine made specifically for it, with the design of the mod in mind. So I don't see how the version of on PC could not be popular, to be honest. I'd be very, very surprised if it's not. And I really, really hope that they do actually bring it to consoles. That would be awesome, and I'm sure a lot of people who don't really own a PC good enough to game on would love to actually get their hands on this mod. After all the fanfare about it, I'm sure there's many people out there who would actually just kill to get their hands on it, so I'd actually love for this to happen. But there was also another little piece of news, basically, and the Dean Hall also posted on Reddit, basically saying that on launch, DayZ will not have modding. He simply said it's not going to be in there initially. So basically I think that just means that it will come later on, and probably in the forms of like a creation kit, kind of like what happened with Skyrim. Obviously modding did happen before that, but the launch of the creation kit made it a lot easier to create your own mods and so on for the game. So maybe they're thinking of something similar for DayZ. I highly doubt that they're not going to put modding in the game at all. That would be very, very weird and kind of silly, considering that it's because of modding that Dean Hall is where he is now. I mean, if he wasn't able to mod Arma 2, then none of this would be happening. So I highly doubt he's going to restrict modding in that sense, because, well, why would he? That would make no sense at all. So hopefully we'll see the modding eventually for DayZ. There's no word as to when it will be in the game, just that it won't be in there on launch, basically. So while that's a little bit annoying, a little bit of a kick in the teeth, I'm sure they have their reasons. Maybe they just want to properly optimise it for modding or come up with a creation kit or what have you. I don't know, that the reasons aren't given in this particular news item here. So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on this, guys? Would you like to see it come to consoles? And what are your opinions on the fact that DayZ is not going to support modding when it's initially released? I would love to know what you think of this, and of this whole modding thing in general. Obviously, modding has always been a huge part of PC gaming and all that good stuff, and we've seen a rise in games that have basically had modding completely not supported on PC, for the reason that if you can mod it for free and download a mod for free, why would you then pay for DLC? So a lot of games have had it restricted so that basically they can sell DLC to you, because why would you pay for, say, I don't know, a skin pack if there's a modder who's made a similar skin pack or even a better skin pack for free? But to be honest, I don't really think that modding is against DLC, or the two can't exist together, because let's take Skyrim for an example. Obviously, the Dawnguard DLC was just released for PC a couple of weeks ago, and yet modding is huge for that game, because mods can be anything from better textures, better controls, better menu, better of entry screen for Skyrim, for example. Silly mods like turning all the dragons into Rainbow Dash from My Little Pony or whatever. So, I don't think that modding is like, oh, you can't have that and DLC, because that's just silly. You obviously can, because if you do your DLC properly, then a modder isn't really going to be able to compete. Obviously, there are some really talented modders out there, do not get me wrong. The existence of DayZ and a ton of other mods is proof of that. I mean, I'm an Amnesia the Dark Descent player. I've seen what modders can do. I've seen the custom stories, I've seen the full conversions such as White Knight, Lakaza, and the one that I recently played, Cry Oni. The talent of some of these modders is not in question here. But obviously, the company has more people, more resources, more time to make something big. So, for example, with Dawnguard, I don't think a modder could really match that, obviously, because that's a whole new campaign. It's more of an expansion than DLC, to be honest. So I just think that when dealing with PC games and modding, you just have to do your DLC right in order to make it compete with the mods, which are most likely going to be for free. Give people incentive to go with your product rather than the free one, because at the end of the day, the game creators know how best to work with the game, and if you give them something awesome like, say, I don't know, a new character, or I don't know, new moves or so on, something like that, the examples are endless, then obviously they're going to get that regardless of whether or not there's a mod for it, because at the end of the day, that is official content released by the company that is properly optimised. So I don't really understand this rise in PC games not allowing modding, because while from the DLC standpoint it's a little bit dicey, modding just extends the life of a game, and it can also spawn new games. I mean, DOTA, for example, all of these DOTA style games, MOBA games, have come from modding, and games that are years old have still being played today because of mods. So I don't think developers are really thinking about that side of it. They're just trying to think, oh, DLC, but no. If people can mod your game, then they will continue to play it even once the single player campaign is done with. Like, Amnesia is a perfect example. If you can create custom stories and full or partial conversions for that game, would half of us still be playing it? Probably not, because if say there was no mods, no custom stories, no nothing, all there was the main story, why would you continue to play it once you finish the main story? There's nothing else to do. But because there's the modding there, people are still playing it, people are still creating content, So hopefully we will see DayZ support modding and more games in the future. I really hope the success of DayZ and everything that's happened with it will basically encourage more developers to allow modding for their PC games, because on one hand I can kind of understand why they're a little bit unsure as to whether or not they should allow it. I think the benefits far outweigh the risks, at least in my opinion. Obviously I'm not a game developer, but you know, I'm fairly knowledgeable on this subject, and I think that it's more than worth the risk to allow people to mod your game. You just have to do it correctly, to be honest. So hopefully the success of DayZ will see less of a rise in games not allowing modding, and basically encourage developers to allow modding of their game, because if this sort of thing happens, well, it's good for everyone really, isn't it? Anyway guys, that's enough of me rambling aimlessly. Hope you've enjoyed this video and found it somewhat entertaining. As always, please do check out our channel and give us a subscribe and all that good stuff if you haven't already. And we also have a website over at redgamingtech.com and a Facebook/Twitter, which is always just going to be /redgamingtech.com regardless of /redgamingtech, sorry. Regardless of what website you happen to be using. So go check us out if you would be so kind, and I'll see you again soon.